A heart-wrenching betrayal by my family, my brother's affair exposed, and how I took revenge. This is the shocking story of my ultimate victory. Imagine this, the woman I loved, the one I thought was my everything, vanished without a trace, the night before I was planning to propose. Gone. Just like that. And 5 years later, I discover the gut-wrenching truth, she's been with my brother all along. How does that even happen? How could I not see it? I'm 29 now, and for the past 5 years, I've been living in the shadow of that disappearance. No other woman could even come close. I didn't want to move on, didn't want to let go of the hope that one day, somehow, she'd return. She and I had been inseparable since senior year of high school, almost 6 years together. We fought through distance, kept our bond strong even as we were scattered across the country in college. We couldn't meet more than once or twice a month, but I thought we were happy, in love. At least, that's what I believed in my heart. Then, on my 24th birthday, I was ready to ask her to marry me. I had everything planned. Our friends, our family, the perfect moment. But the night before my birthday, she said she was running late coming home from work. I waited and waited. Hours passed. I tried calling, texting, at least 100 messages, maybe more, but there was nothing. Not a single reply. I reached out to her friends, to her family, but they all blocked me. My common friends didn't know where she was, or if they did, they refused to tell me. It felt like she just vanished, erased herself from my life completely. I couldn't even find her on social media. It was as though she'd erased herself from the digital world too. And the timing. Was she planning to leave me the whole time, or did she just slip away before I could ask her to be mine forever? I don't know. I never found out. I considered filing the missing person report, but then I realized she wasn't missing. She didn't want to be found. By me. So, I let it go. I even made fake accounts, tried to track her down online under different names, but no luck. She was untraceable, and I was left to wonder why. Why did she disappear? Was she really happy with me, or was I just some lie she'd been living? For 4 years, I didn't even try to date anyone else. I couldn't. Every time I thought about it, her face, her smile, the way she laughed, would flood my mind. So I stopped. I couldn't move on. I was frozen, stuck in the past. But the thing is, I didn't want to forget her. I couldn't. I kept waiting. Maybe for closure, maybe for an explanation. I didn't know what else to do. 3 years ago, I started therapy, trying to make sense of it all. It helped, but I never forgot. How could I? She was my world. Then, 2 weeks ago, everything changed. I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear. My brother, my older brother, the one who's lived in Canada for years, was talking about my ex. My ex. My heart sank. My mother had asked him when he was bringing her and the kids down, but what struck me was this: he said they were trying to figure out how to do it without me knowing. Without me finding out. Wait, what? My ex? The woman who disappeared from my life? My brother? No, this couldn't be real. I just stood there, frozen, trying to process what I'd just heard. It didn't make sense. But it was all falling into place. When I got home, I logged into one of those fake accounts I'd created 5 years ago. I never thought to search for my brother on social media. He always hated it, told me he wasn't active. But there he was, on Instagram, with a private account I'd never seen. Scrolling through it, I saw pictures of him with her. My ex. And there, in the photos, was a kid who looked just like her. Only the eyes, those eyes, looked like my brother's. My heart shattered. This was it. This was where she had been all along. And the worst part? Everyone knew. My parents, my brother, my friends, they all knew where she had been. They'd covered it up for 5 years, let me believe she was gone without a trace. It was sickening. The times my parents comforted me, told me to move on, all while knowing the truth. My brother, he had the audacity to take her from me, to steal the life I was supposed to have. And then come back here, year after year, pretending to be my friend. I was done. I couldn't be around them anymore. But before I cut them out of my life completely, I wanted them to know. I wasn't going to just disappear like my ex had. I wanted them to understand that I knew what they'd done. That I wasn't going to forgive them. They had ruined my life. For 5 years, they let me suffer in silence. They didn't help me. They didn't care. And then there was one more thing. My ex. She had used a completely different name, one of the nicknames I'd once called her when we were first together, one she had hated, and I had stopped using. I never thought to search for that name. And that was the final twist, the cruelest irony. I sent them all the same message. One line. Just one, I know what you've done, and all I want to know is why. That's it. Because that's all I needed from them. Why? Why did you do this to me? Why? I'm supposed to be the one they turn to when things go wrong, right? But instead, they've chosen to deceive me, hide the truth, lie to my face, and make a complete fool out of me. How is that fair? I thought sending that text would bring some relief, that it would give me the answers I needed. But it didn't. No, I didn't feel any better. I was left feeling even more empty, and that's when I called up a few friends from high school. We hit the nearest bar, and I drank myself into a stupor, so drunk I had to be carried home. I was a mess. I didn't even bother to go to work the next 2 days. It wasn't just the hangover or the binge drinking. It was the pain. The betrayal. Years had passed, and no one thought they owed me the truth, no explanation, no closure. How could they just let me rot in this uncertainty? I spent days trapped in my head, trying to make sense of everything. And so, I ignored the messages my family sent. I couldn't even bring myself to look at them. And yeah, I also texted my ex, because I didn't have her number anymore, just her Instagram. What was I expecting? A simple response, a bit of closure, an explanation. But no, she didn't answer until yesterday. And when she did, well, that was a punch to the gut. She replied with 2 paragraphs, saying she was married now. She even had a kid. She told me it was inappropriate for me to have even found her account, let alone message her. She said she didn't owe me an explanation or closure, and neither did my brother. She told me to forget about her, to move on already. And if years hadn't been enough to help me move on, then maybe I was the problem, not her. Can you believe that? Instead of just being upfront with me, she turned it all on me. She said if I couldn't let go, then I needed to get checked, because clearly, something was wrong with me. I was floored. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. I couldn't believe how she tore into me. All I had asked was why. Why didn't she just break up with me properly instead of running off with my brother? Was that so much to ask? I didn't want her back. She was clearly happy with her life. I just needed to understand. And that's when it hit me. I hadn't considered the consequences of asking her for that simple answer. Was I wrong for wanting clarity? For wanting to know the truth, for wanting to understand why my brother of all people, my own brother, was the one she chose? The rest of my family? They keep trying to call me, but I'm not interested. I don't even know who to talk to anymore. The friends we had in common? They're out of my life now. So, here I am, alone in all of this. AITA for texting my ex after finding out she'd been with my brother for the past 5 years? After she disappeared without a word? Update: it's been a week since I posted this, and I haven't been able to share any updates because I've been too busy catching up on work. But you know what? As much as I thought texting her and asking for an explanation was justified, now I see it was all pointless. I wasn't wrong for wanting the truth, but she was just a horrible person. She cheated on me with my brother, left without a word, and started a family with him. That was the cold, hard truth. And that's all the closure I'm ever going to get. It hit me hard at first, but now I feel much better about it all. I'm actually relieved she told me what she did. It made me realize something. I dodged a bullet. She was the one with the problem, not me. I had given that relationship my all. And what did I get in return? She chose my brother. She chose my brother over me, and so did the rest of my family. That was the truth I had to face. I lost her a long time ago, but finding out about this just brought everything crashing down again. And this time, the loss stung 100 times more because it wasn't just her. It was them, my family. They betrayed me for 5 whole years. How could they do that to me? I wouldn't wish this kind of pain on anyone, not even my worst enemy. These past few days have been an emotional wreck, and even my therapist was shocked when I told her what happened. It's bad. I still haven't responded to any of my family's texts, and I don't think I'm going to. It's pointless. Nothing they say or do will make this right anymore. My mom's sick, but honestly, after everything that's happened, I don't know if I can ever forgive her. The only thing I can do now is move on. Update 2. My brother came to my house today. Can you believe that? After everything that's happened, he came here to have a civilized discussion about our situation. That's what he called it. I refused to let him in. I was done. 3 weeks have passed since I overheard my mom and brother talking and found out the truth. Since then, they've all been texting me, desperate for me to talk to them. But I haven't even looked at their messages. I don't get why they're all so desperate now. If they cared about me at all, they would have told me the truth from the beginning. But no, they kept it all from me for 5 years. And now, my brother's standing outside my door, calling me immature and juvenile for not letting him in. He's trying to reason with me, telling me that he and my ex fell in love during one of his visits back home. They tried to stay away from each other, but it didn't work. So they ran away together. And my parents kept it all a secret so I wouldn't get hurt. They thought it would be better to let me know only after I had found someone, so I'd at least have some emotional support. Can you even imagine? What if I had found someone else during those 5 years? Their plan would have destroyed that relationship. Honestly, I'm relieved I didn't find anyone during that time. Finding out the truth now? It's painful, but it also feels like a twisted blessing in disguise. The truth hit me like a freight train. How could they do this to me? My own family, the ones who were supposed to be there for me in my darkest moments, had lied, betrayed, and abandoned me. They'd chosen silence, deception, and, worst of all, they'd left me to stew in this unbearable mix of hurt and disbelief. I thought I'd find some relief when I sent that text, some kind of closure to put the pieces together. But no, nothing. It only deepened the wound. So, in an attempt to escape the emotional tornado swirling in my head, I reached out to a few high school friends. We hit the nearest bar, and I drank until I couldn't remember how I'd gotten home. I was in such a state, I couldn't even go to work for 2 days. It wasn't just the alcohol that kept me down, it was the weight of betrayal. It was the years of silence from the people who were supposed to love me, who didn't think I deserved the truth, or an explanation, or even the bare minimum of closure. And yet here I was, lost in a storm of questions. How could they all pretend like nothing had ever happened? How could I still be here, living in the aftershock of their lies? Days passed, and I couldn't bring myself to check the texts from my family. I couldn't face their excuses. I didn't even want to open the message from my ex. But I did. And when I did, I found out she'd moved on, with my brother. Not just a fling, not just a mistake, no, she was married, had a child. And I'd been kept in the dark, like some kind of fool. She didn't hold back. 2 paragraphs, cold, indifferent, telling me how inappropriate it was for me to even reach out. She made it clear that she didn't owe me anything, not even the courtesy of an explanation. She said if all these years hadn't been enough for me to move on, then I was the problem. Not her. Not my brother. Me. I should get checked, she said, because something must be wrong with me. And I just sat there, stunned. Was this really happening? Did I really just get slapped in the face by the very people who were supposed to care for me? I had asked for nothing more than a reason, a simple explanation of why they ran away with my life. But this wasn't it. I didn't know what I had expected, but it certainly wasn't this cold, heartless dismissal. The truth hurt more than I thought it would. But maybe that was just the start of it. As if this betrayal wasn't enough, my family kept trying to contact me. They sent message after message, desperate for my attention. But what could they say? What could they offer? How could they fix what they'd broken? There was nothing they could do, nothing they could say that would undo the damage. I just couldn't bring myself to care anymore. I didn't even want to read their texts. It didn't matter. And then, in an almost cruel twist, my brother showed up at my door. After weeks of silence, he decided to talk, to try and convince me that everything was fine, that I was overreacting. It took everything I had not to slam the door in his face, but I let him talk. I stood there, listening, as he blamed it all on me not understanding their love, his and my ex's. They had to keep it a secret to spare my feelings. They tried to keep it from me, he said, because they thought I wouldn't be able to handle it. He tried to paint them as the victims, like they had been protecting me all this time. Are you serious? I snapped. I told him to leave, threatened to call the police, because I couldn't take it anymore. He finally lost his temper too. The nerve of him, standing there in the cold, pleading for me to listen, when all I could feel was rage building up inside me. And then he said something that almost pushed me over the edge. He told me he was only trying to talk to me because Mom was sick. It was all for her, he said. But let's be real, if she wasn't ill, he wouldn't have cared. He wouldn't have even come here. He'd be living his life, happy, while I struggled with the fallout of their betrayal. The thought of it sickened me. I didn't let him stay. I told him to get lost, to go to hell. And when he cursed at me on his way out, I felt that familiar wave of anger wash over me. But I held it in. Barely. As he walked away, I felt like I might crumble. How could they do this to me? How could they just waltz in and out of my life, pretending like they hadn't destroyed everything I thought I knew? That night, I tried to distract myself. Netflix, social media, anything to take my mind off the haunting reality of it all. But even with all the distractions, I couldn't shake his words, his voice. It kept replaying in my head. I didn't know what to do. How could I ever forgive them for this? How could I go on knowing that they had torn me apart? And then there was my mom. As much as I hated it, I knew I had to do something. I didn't want her health to get worse because of all this. But how could I possibly talk to her? What could I even say? She was just as guilty as the rest of them. Still, guilt gnawed at me. I couldn't let her go without at least trying to fix something, to do something right. So, I agreed to meet her. The meeting? Well, it didn't go as I'd expected. She cried. She apologized. She begged for forgiveness. But it didn't matter. It didn't mean a thing. It was empty. Numb. Even when she confessed everything, how they had known all along, how my brother had begged them to cover for him, how they orchestrated this entire scheme to keep me in the dark, it just made me feel more hollow. But then, in that moment, I realized something. I had the power now. I could make them pay. And I would. So, I laid down the ultimatum. She had to change her will. She had to promise that I would get what was rightfully mine. I wasn't just going to forgive her. No, I was going to make them understand what it felt like to lose everything. This was my revenge. This was the power I'd been denied for so long. And you know what? It felt damn good.